delighted to say, still with me in the studio is political journalist Theo Ushford, and we've also been joined by the studio. This is my first Labour MP of the new Parliament, of the new dawn that has broken. Mike Tapp, who's Labour MP for Dover and Deal, joins us. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Very, very, very welcome. Some might say brave, but we're very happy to have you.
Look, it's a pleasure to be here. My politics is very much common sense, so it feels
well,
like
we'd like to hear a bit of that, and yet a member of the Labour Party. Who knew? And now you're part of this new Labour group, Labour Growth Group. What is that?
So all it is a collection of MPs who've got together very quickly and sent that letter of intent to Keir Starmer and 10 Downing Street, just making it really clear that we're behind number 10 on growth and on delivering the housing that we need. Oh, no, not at all. It's just a collective that's got to get together very quickly, essentially. And, you know, what we need to see is that house building. And after 2 years knocking on doors in Dover, I can see just how desperate we are. There's people in their 40s still living at home. Rent is going, you know, up to ridiculous heights.
We'll come on to that.
We must build.
Let me ask you actually about the breaking news we had just a few moments ago before we went to the news. It's being reported as a done deal that the British Medical Association's Junior Doctors Committee has done a deal with ministers, obviously Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, and is going to recommend an offer to the members which would see basically a rise of about 20% in their pay over 2 years. Now, they were demanding 35%. They were made it very clear they weren't expecting to get 35%, you know, in this tax year, but over a period of years to backdate the money they say they've lost since 2010. In total, we're looking at backdated pay rise of about 4% for last tax year, on top of an existing increase of about 8.8%, so between 8.8% and 10%. So you're looking at best part of 14% for last year in total. They've already been given this extra money along with nurses and others, but also a further pay rise of 6% for next year. That's going to be topped up with another £1,000 just one-off payment. So it's equivalent to a pay rise of between 7% and 9%. It's pretty complicated. Overall, you're looking at being basically earning 20% more at the end of the 2 years. It wasn't the Garibaldis or the custard creams that did it. It wasn't getting around the table. It was cold, hard cash. People who are watching and listening to the show, it's our taxpayers' money that's going to the doctors. Is that a good deal?
So thank you for doing the maths for me there. My head was whirring. My calculation was going.
I'm bugging it. I can add it all up. Thanks to the Times. I don't think it made any sense at all. Roughly 20%.
So what I say on this, we're waiting for an announcement from the Labour Party, Wes Streeting and Rachel Reeves on this. We know from the manifesto that everything we put forward going forward is fully funded, and it's really important that we don't put, you know, ideology first. It is country first, and that means saving people's lives. And I've spoken to people on countless doors who firstly can't see a GP, secondly are waiting too long for diagnosis. There's one lovely family who actually lost someone because of that. So we simply must engage with this, and you know, if this is true, then and it's fully costed, then that's a good thing.
Were you saying this when lockdowns, when people were told not to bother the NHS? Were you saying exactly the same thing then?
Well, look,
that's why we've got. That's partly why we're in this mess.
I think we had to protect the NHS during the COVID period.
I thought the job of the NHS was to protect us.
It was a really difficult period, but going forward, we've got the nice Labour government that are looking at fully costed spending on everything that we do, and that's what you'll see coming out of 10 Downing Street.
OK, fully costed. Now, this is what we're going to learn today, that, it turns out that the Conservative government's plans weren't fully costed. There is a £20 billion black hole in the public finances that apparently was not known before the Chancellor and the Treasury carried out this check of the books. Interestingly, the Chancellor said only very recently, and we know the Office of Budget Responsibility will oversee any decision in the future. You won't get a Liz Truss-style budget ever again, where the Office of Budget Responsibility hasn't overseen the numbers. And yet the Office of Budget Responsibility hasn't been allowed to oversee this Treasury audit. But it turns out that she has found £20 billion in this black hole, which apparently wasn't known to the Office of Budget Responsibility, even though these figures are independently verified for Treasury, and wasn't apparently even known to the Institute for Fiscal Studies, who said, there's a black hole coming. How is she the only person who didn't know that there was a load of money that was committed to be spent and it wasn't enough money coming in?
So we knew we were inheriting a mess, and we've seen that from how much people are suffering from the cost of living crisis and absolute dire public services. We've come into this with a Treasury audit that's been conducted quickly in the last 3 weeks. But we've made it really clear that there will not be a fiscal event without an OBR assessment. And there'll only be one of those a year so that businesses have that security that they need. Enough of these mini budgets and emergencies that throw business into absolute chaos.
No government plans to do emergency budgets and mini budgets.
Well, Liz Truss planned her mini budget and she absolutely tanked the economy. That's not what you're going to get from Labour. You're going to get stability with an economist in Rachel Reeves and a secure leadership from
I'm not
Keir
sure
Starmer.
that Bank of England economist in your CV is actually the sort of the thing to celebrate.
I think it is.
Given what the Bank of England has done with interest rates.
Well, I trust Rachel Reeves, an economist, a hell of a lot more than I did the Conservatives who tanked the economy. And I've spoken to people on the doors who had their mortgage got by £600.
When was the last time the economy was tanked? Can we remember? Do you remember the last time that we had a government parties changing hands? Was it Liam Byrne, who's the former Chief Secretary of the Treasury, who wrote that letter? I'm afraid there's no more money.
It's really common that Conservatives look back decades to poke holes in Labour's plan, but going forward we've got a secure plan, we've got that stability, and what we'll see from Rachel Reeves today will be how we're going to make that up so that the country can
it's all the
thrive
Tories'
again.
fault.
It's all about growth.
I'm under no illusion that the Tories made loads of bad decisions. They did. However, an awful lot of those bad decisions, like for instance the borrowing of money, paid people on furlough long after the immediate panic of COVID was over, that Labour was not only supporting that but said there should be more money. When it comes to the energy crisis, because part of that is the fact that Labour supported all these net zero policies which put us in an energy crisis, so we couldn't deal with the Ukraine war and the impact of those.
There's been no long-term plan from Conservatives when it comes to energy.
No, you're all useless.
But this is why we've made it so clear that going forward that's not the case.
But there is the public finances would be in just a bad state if Labour had been in the last few years. You wanted the lockdowns, you supported all of that. Would have agreed on Ukraine. You'd have the same useless energy policy, which meant that we saw energy prices rise. Your party wanted the energy, help to keep energy bills to go up. You wanted that even more than people actually got. So I mean, everything that you can criticise the Tories for, one could equally criticise Labour for supporting.
Well, we've had 14 years Conservatives, we've had 3 weeks of Labour, and what you're going to see is plans for that security and stability going forward.
Right.
Everything in our manifesto was fully costed, and we have inherited a mess, and the assessment that's been carried out by the Treasury has uncovered uncosted spending.
How was that information not available to the Office for Budget Responsibility?
Because uncosted spending is within the Treasury. That's not put out there.
Half of it is a pay deal for this sort of 5.5% pay deal for teachers and nurses and others. Well, I mean, you don't have to pay for that. That wasn't costed because maybe the Tories weren't going to give them 5.5%.
Right. Well, what we've got going forward is Rachel Reeves's budget in the future, and that will see us essentially with fully costed policies across the board, and that means that we can tax at the right place. And we've been really clear that's not on working people, that's not on income tax,
oh, good.
that's
so
not
my
on
taxes
VAT,
aren't going to go up,
and that's not on national insurance. The Conservatives have been pushing that line throughout the whole of the short campaign. It's a bit boring now. That's not what we're going to do. We'll be taxing in the right places and bringing that money in.
What are the right places to tax? Well, saying something is fully costed is one thing, but fully costed means we know how we're going to pay for it, but you still have to pay for it. Now, you can't keep borrowing. Interest rates are still relatively high. The markets aren't going to allow us to borrow much more, so it's going to be in tax rises. Lots of talk of inheritance tax, capital gains tax, issues over pension entitlement in terms of the tax rebates you're allowed for that, but also even fuel duty and the freeze-on fuel duty being unfrozen. What do you think is most likely?
So this is where obviously Rachel Reeves comes in, not me as a backbencher, but
Nothing
what
to
I
do with
can
me,
say, well, I can't give the Treasury announcements before they've come, but what I can say for sure
it's all right, it's just
is
you and me.
What will not be tax on working people. That VAT, that income tax, that national insurance will remain where it is. We're looking at closing in non-dom tax status.
Taxes are going up on working people, and they would have under the Tories as well, and they're under Labour because of the tax thresholds, which the fiscal drag, people are going to be dragged into those. You give someone a 5.5% pay rise, a lot of those people will be dragged into paying a higher marginal rate of tax.
So we're closing the non-dom tax status. That's going to bring in billions of pounds
of that. Go for
the NHS. We're also looking at windfall tax on the oil and gas industry.
Another
one. Importantly, economy, we're looking at growth and things like GB Energy and building 1.5 million houses over this parliamentary term will help.
The last government promised exactly the same number of houses.
And that's why we're bringing in planning reform, so there'll be 300 new planning offices around the country. And this is what
mandatory house building targets
is backing.
But basically, it's all very well. Look, people like, I build more houses, absolutely vital. We haven't got the materials, we haven't got the labour to build that many new houses.
And this is where, by committing to this...
lots of people say they want new houses, but they don't want them near their
And this is by committing to this and having those planning reforms means that those procurement systems...
You're going to suddenly magic up all the labourers, all the bricklayers...
That's the way capitalism
works. You're going to import them like...
this is the Common Sense radio station. You know full well that once these things are triggered, then capitalism falls in behind it and starts serving. So essentially you'll get to build those 1.5 million houses.
Create a load of experienced plasterers and bricklayers.
No, it does take time, and we've made it really clear.
So how are you going to build 300,000?
We've made it really clear that, I mean, that 200,000 have been planned for over the next year. So actually, we're really looking at pushing that up to probably by about 100,000. That's not unrealistic. That will trigger the market, and that's the beauty of growth, because then we start to see growth in the economy, and that filters then down to services and people will benefit.
How do you deliver growth if you're going to be putting up rates of capital gains? So there are arguments for and against different taxes going up or down, but capital gains tax, people getting the benefits from entrepreneurial efforts. What about inheritance tax? An awful lot of people, they work really hard, they pay tax. Higher earners who are going to end up paying inheritance tax, well, their estate will end up paying it. They've worked very hard, and one of the things that actually really motivates people is handing something on to their family, to their children. Inheritance tax, despite the fact that the vast majority of families will never ever be impacted by it, is an incredibly unpopular tax.
I'd love to invite you to Dover to knock on the doors and speak with people in their 40s who are stuck at home because they can't afford even to rent, and people whose mortgages have gone up £600 a year. You know, we've got to build more houses. That creates the market. And
what has inheritance tax got to do with that?
So we haven't said we're putting up inheritance tax. We're waiting on that information at the fiscal event that we'll see later this year. We've made it really clear that we won't be taxing working people. VAT won't go up. National insurance won't go up.
The rates of VAT will go up. It'll go up on private school fees. Fuel duty. There's a lot of question marks about whether fuel duty and the freeze on fuel duty will go up. Now, you talk about working people. 80% of people use their cars to get to and from work. Everything we buy gets delivered by road eventually. Its fuel duty has a massive impact on everyone's cost of living.
And this is why if we start to see growth...
But it wasn't ruled out. If
we start to see growth in the economy, let's look at GB Energy, for example.
How's GB Energy going to deliver?
The agreement that we've got with the Crown will bring in £60 billion extra revenue, but that's just the beginning. These are the first
This is for offshore wind.
And if we can go fully renewable by 2030, we have control of our energy prices.
Fully renewable in
not
what?
Vladimir Putin. If you want Vladimir Putin to control your energy prices, that's fine. Labour don't. And we'll ensure that doesn't happen.
Fully renewable in what by 2030?
So in electricity. And that's a really good
You think we're going to go fully renewable?
That's the ambition.
That's the ambition. There is nobody who knows anything about energy in this country who thinks that's remotely possible.
This is a really important ambition, and if we can deliver on this, it also
Do you know what my ambition is? I'm going to be a size 10 supermodel. I mean, it's not going to happen, mate. It's not. In fact, that's more likely.
I can't comment on that, Julie. But what I can comment...
I'm going to be an astronaut. I'm going to dance for the Royal Bank.
You can be an astronaut.
It's not going to happen. Ambitions are lovely. They need to be realistic.
Of course.
Do you know what the estimated cost from National Grid is to put in the infrastructure for us to have fully renewable fully renewable electricity? Do you know what that figure is, roughly?
Look, what we've got here...
Just to the nearest 10 billion.
So what we've got here is a really important ambition.
to the nearest 10 billion, what is that number?
If we can deliver on that ambition, it will also create growth. And growth is really important.
I believe, just top of my head, it was 58 billion quid. By 2030.
Right. So,
not over the next 100 years.
So this is where big taxes on the oil and gas industry is really important. That windfall tax, they've said themselves they're cash cows throughout the COVID
Your own party pointed out a few years ago that those windfall taxes don't actually bring in any money because actually the biggest operators don't pay those taxes.
Well, we're going to put legislation in to ensure that we can, and there's a lot of money coming in. Well, that's the point of the Labour government. And also, if you're going to get growth,
here's the thing, let's get some growth in the public sector at some point, shall we? We have seen absolute flatlining growth in the public sector, an awful lot of people working from home. We've also got a government that has basically decided, we're not going to publish the figures on how many people in Whitehall have to turn up at their office every day. We've got civil servants unions basically saying, we're not even coming in 1 or 2 days a week, thank you very much. And yet we have zero productivity growth in about 20 years in the public sector.
Yeah, and that's what we're pushing for. And
how are you going to deliver miraculously out of the blue productivity growth?
So we've made it really clear that firstly this isn't easy and quick, but building more housing, building more housing will lead to growth.
How does building more housing lead to growth and productivity in the public sector? Is the public sector holding everyone else back?
We've spoken about how triggering those procurement systems around property can bring more money into the economy. And of course, if the economy thrives, then so does the public sector, and so do public services. Public services.
No, there's no link.
So public services will receive the money that's really important.
When, for instance, it takes 6 months to get a driving test in this country.
Yes, it's broken, and this is what we're inheriting.
And you want to get a job, but okay. You've got people working from home when people can't get a passport quickly. When you've got people, you haven't got enough people doing passport checking in the country, so people have to queue up to get in and out of the country. All of these things, but you can't get planning permission through. It took me 4 months to get planning permission for some sodding fencing in my. I mean, the country's ground to a halt in terms of the public sector.
And this is what we're going to change.
What does building more houses do to improve that?
If you fix the economy, you have more money in the economy to filter down.
We're going to pay civil servants more money to sit at home not being productive.
No. So look, we're talking about public services here, right? So let's talk about our buses. Let's talk about the NHS. Let's talk about driving licences and passports and local councils. So if you fix the economy, that money under a Labour government will filter down to public services. But we have to be given a chance to do that. Why does paying people more money
make them more productive?
Sorry, at what point are we saying that?
You're saying more money going to... I don't understand how you're going to make... I think you've got the cart and the horse the wrong way round. You need to say we need proper productivity growth in the public sector to deliver growth.
Let's take decision-making at the Home Office, for example, and the mess that we've inherited when it comes to immigration.
Let's talk about the Home Office.
If we can employ more decision-makers there, which needs funding, of course, then we can do that. In this instance, we're taking it from
more
Rwanda.
Decision-makers.
Exactly, because, I've spoken to people who've been in the system for 5 years, and there's not enough of them. But at the same time, a returns unit of up to 1,000
we also had a situation where we had civil servants who employed to make decisions only making one decision a week.
Look, of course there's efficiency, and that's going to take strong management. But at the same time,
how are you going to have strong management of people who are sitting at home?
Well, I don't think that's the case, is it? My understanding
is that
it is. No,
I think it is, because that's why we've had
Rees-Mogg ridiculousness who was walking around putting tickets. That's not the case. There is hybrid working going on, of course, and this is for the managers.
Civil servants refusing to come into the office even twice a week.
This is for ministers in each department to make decisions themselves.
No, it's not. No, it's not. They're not in charge of whether civil servants.
No, but they can talk if they think there's not productivity coming out of their department. They can have that conversation.
They can't sack civil servants.
No, but they can have the conversation around how we work.
We can have a conversation
around how we work, and that's really important.
And civil servants say, we don't care, we're going to stay home.
I think what we're doing here is we're sort of trying to get into the minutiae of the civil service, when actually we need to be talking about growth, which is what we're going to be delivering to bring more money down.
The private sector is really good at growth and really good at productivity.
And of course, we should harness the private sector.
And efficiency. You know how you know that? Because the companies that aren't, they fail, and the companies that do well, they make profit. There is no such constraints or motivating forces on the public sector.
Look, if we can fix the economy with growth, then we have more money filtering down to the public sector.
I'm saying you can't fix growth until you fix the public sector.
No, I disagree with that. And growth comes with house building, and it comes with Great British Energy, and we'll see that starting to be delivered over the next few years.
Great British Energy ain't going to deliver a single penny of growth.
I can see you're sceptical, but let's see how we go.
Sceptical doesn't do justice to this. Look, you mentioned the boats. You mentioned the issue. We've had the latest figures on Channel migrants. Of course, you're an MP for Dover and Deal, so you're up against the coalface on this one, or the chalk face. Rather more appropriately. 16,202 Channel migrants have arrived in the UK so far in 2024. Since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister on the 5th of July, 2,628 migrants have arrived. You're looking at, in 23 we had 29,500, in 2022 45,500, roughly making the same journey. We are on track to another bad year, aren't we?
We are, and this is what we've inherited, and I think anyone with common sense will realise that you don't fix it in 3 weeks, right?
Oh, wait a minute. I thought they...
So do you think we should fix it in 3 weeks?
I thought you'd sorted out the gangs. I thought you were going to destroy the gangs. You're smashing the gangs.
Did you expect it to come down in 3 weeks?
No, Keir Starmer was going to have a conversation with Emmanuel Macron. It will be sorted.
I don't think you expected it to come down in 3 weeks.
I don't
think anyone does. Anyone with common sense. Come on, this is the common sense show. But what we are looking at doing is setting up the Border Security Command, and that's going to be really important.
What, with the one we've already got?
That was dealing with the processing of those that arrived. That's going to bring in the likes of MI5 with those extra counter-terror powers and tools to smash the criminal gangs.
Smash the gangs.
And then we stop people getting into boats. But at the same time...
They're not going to give up. They're not just going to completely give up.
At the same time, more decision makers in the Home Office, up to 1,000 officers in the return
making more decisions and allowing 70,000, the Refugee Council, some 70,000 people in the backlogs to be given leave to stay.
Absolutely not. It would ensure that decisions are made quicker so that we can deport those that shouldn't be here, and obviously those that are genuine refugees get that support. But I'm really excited about the Border Security Command. You know, this is going to bring in those intelligence officials who understand the culture of not just enforcement but also disruption. Now, I've worked against criminal gangs in the past and in a counter-terror role, and I see the difference that those powers make, and it's really important. And we're going to go after them, and we will be their worst nightmare, I can assure you of that. You know, we're not going out there with silly gimmicks and promises like the Conservatives did with Rwanda. We're diverting that money into something that'll actually work.
On behalf of the nation, good luck with that.
Thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure to have you in the studio. I hope you'll come back again. Mike Tapp, Labour MP for Dover, a deal. Real pleasure. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.